Man, I love a good cigar.
Which one do you have?
So tonight it is the Romeo Julieta Reserve Real 1875. Excuse me.
I've had those before. Not that exact one, but that's good.
This one comes into the glass case, you know?
Fancy.
Yeah. I can't decide if I like... I know we talked about it the first time about the cellophane over the glass or open. You know why they do that in the cellophane?
I do not.
So in shipping, there's a place over in Plano, and when they ship them, it holds the flavor of the cigar longer. But it's also more difficult to get the humidity properly assessed. I probably butchered that, but so it'll the cellophane will hold the flavor longer, basically.
Okay.
And you don't have to keep it in the box as long. What are you smoking?
This is a Oliva Serie V or Serie Cinco or Serie 5, whatever you call it. Double Robusto. Ooh. It's a big, fat cigar for a big, fat electoral win.
Have you tried the Asylum cigar?
Mm-mm.
It's so like these are like in millimeters, I think, is the circumference. So this would be like a 6 millimeter. The Asylum one is 12. It's the size of this microphone when you're smoking it. It's so awkward.
That's too much. Yeah.
So awkward.
That's too much.
But then also it's the flavor is very strong. It's very strong.
Big fat cigar for big fat electoral college win for Trump, I guess. Although I'm just thinking about it. Victory cigars are probably more attuned to Bill Clinton than Trump.
This is also true.
Yeah, I guess.
Maybe if we had brought in Big Macs. Big
Macs. We should have had.
We should have
some McDonald's.
Victory McDonald's on the way here. We should have picked up some Victory McDonald's.
Yeah.
On a funny side of that conversation, do you think that RFK is going to take away his McDonald's?
I hadn't thought about that.
You know, I was thinking about that.
He's the health guy.
He's supposed to be one of those health guys.
That is funny because you'll hear other podcasts leading up to the election talk about how, you know, like especially because I listen to some health and some fitness and some working out podcast, and they will talk about how RFK is supposed to help Americans with that, right? Because you look at American products and there's so much processing, like there's 40 or 50 ingredients, and then you go to Europe and there's like 5 ingredients, and RFK is supposed to work on that. And then I was thinking about but his boss likes a lot of processed food
and is not the pillar of health. So that there was a report that was out that said that he was awake for 72 hours.
Oh my gosh.
For the election results and prior to the election. So like
I saw the video of him voting Tuesday morning in Palm Beach, and he looked tired, and that's almost one of the first times I've seen him look tired in an election. Or I'm not in an election.
I don't think I've ever seen him look tired.
But leading up to the election, like he did 5-6 rallies a day, every single one of them, he's got the energy. He looks alert. And then when he was voting, it might have just been because he's like, okay, it's over. Like there might have been a release.
Like the end of the race, and now it's time to go.
Yeah, like it's over. I can go home and sleep now. But sounds like he didn't. So eating that McDonald's will do that to you. But hey, whatever's been working. It's kind of like I used to say. My great granddad lived almost 100, and I'm on chicken fried steak and mashed potatoes. So. Whatever works.
My wife's grandmother lived to be in her mid-80s and smoked almost a pack of cigarettes. She got down to where she wasn't smoking as much, but I mean, she started smoking when she was like 13.
Still,
I mean, I don't know how that works.
I don't know how that works.
So let's hop right in.
Yeah,
312. You were closer than me.
Yeah, so I got fact checked on Tuesday. I got Zuckerberg.
That was my best. One of the best things about starting this is like trying to figure out social media and how we can get our message out and how we can get our page out. And then the first post we make
gets fact checked.
Which
was interesting because if you can drill down into the fact check, you can find out more if you want.
I didn't even dive. I didn't even look at it.
They're quoting an article from 2020.
Really?
So basically, I posted on our pages, on our socials, my prediction of what the electoral map was going to wind up as. And I said in there, this is my prediction of how it's going to wind up. And I wanted 270 to win because it's got the cool little graph you can just put in the states and then screenshot that, and I posted it. And it fact checked it and said Trump did not win this. And it said many people said he did. It was an article from 2020.
Oh my god!
And it was the Washington Post that got credited with the fact check, which they are a global fact check partner or something. I drilled down and read into it, so that was really interesting. I called it a prediction, but I did not pick Wisconsin. I did not have the sweep, and I know this sounds like a lot of hindsight 2020, but I really felt like he was going to sweep them all. But I just couldn't bring myself to putting all 7 in there. And so I didn't. I said that if any of them don't go to Trump, it's going to be Wisconsin. And as it turned out, Wisconsin had the lowest margin between Trump and Harris. So it was close. He was within 1%.
Okay, back to
so far. They're not completely done. They're like 95% counted.
Yeah, but back to episode 1 when we talked about Door County. Did you happen to look at Door County?
I didn't. I can though.
It was ever so slightly blue, like within a.
Oh, then it's wrong.
Then it's wrong. Yeah.
How many years has it been right?
I don't remember, but I just remember seeing that article or reading or listening to that guy talking. He was like, for the last 20 years or something like that, and I was like, well, that's an odd statistic, but then it doesn't swing as going back to the hindsight's 2020, like there's the reason I wanted.
I feel like I have a fire over here.
Yeah,
this,
same
like,
too.
with this double
very
Robusto
smoky.
is smoking up. Like I'm glad we don't have, whatever they call it in here. Anyway,
Fire alarms.
Yeah.
I wanted him to. Why did I think about this often? Like, why did I want Trump to win so bad?
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm honest, we're going to be honest on here. I didn't really want him to win in 2016 just because of the morality of it, right? And the things that he stood for, the things that he said. I did not want Hillary to win either.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't, you didn't really have much of a choice at that point. And then, like, I didn't really have a good, strong opinion about Biden or Trump. Like, it was kind of like, meh.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, man, I was thinking about 2020, right? And so why did Trump win this election? Like, why? Like, last time I checked, it was like almost 6 or 7 million more popular votes is what he had.
Yeah. Second time in 9 general elections that a Republican has won the popular vote. W got it his second time through. And that's it, out of the last 9.
But it still poses the question of why. Why did so many more people vote for him? And why do we see demographics that would not have normally have voted for him or would not have voted at all? I sent you the article about the Amish coming out in droves. I think it was something like 85,000 votes in Pennsylvania alone.
Right.
I didn't dive too deep into it after that state, but
government came after them recently.
But it wasn't just that. Okay, so I remember in 2020 during the riots, we were at a stay in downtown Dallas at Children's Hospital, and I remember thinking, as this riot is happening out the window, I can see it. I just remember thinking, like, I cannot believe this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe this is happening in the country that I love. I can't believe this is happening in the city that I love, in the state that I love. And that just seemed to be the top of the heap, right? Yeah. And it just seemed to keep piling on and on and on and on. And it just kept getting worse, right? And so these ideas and these agendas that the Democrats were pushing, I'm just like, I can't even look down the middle of the road and be like, okay, I can at least kind of understand where you're coming from. This is not on our run sheet, but like when we talked about briefly about, the transgender stuff, like we both have daughters. I don't want boys in that area of their lives. Right.
Right.
And so like as the more of these woke ideas is what I guess we're going to call it, the more that these were being pushed down our face and into our face and saying, you have to do this, you have to, it kept pushing me further away from being able to even come to like, okay, I can at least understand where you're coming from, right? Like I don't know what topic you even want to put out there, but like it's like a topic where, okay, abortion, right? I'm pro-life. I think you should keep a baby if it's born. But at the same time, I'm like, there are situations where it's like, I don't agree with it, but I can at least come to a understanding of why you would make that decision. Not the decision for me,
Right.
but I can understand it. But when you're pushing certain agendas, it just gets to the point to where enough is enough.
I think that has a lot to do with it. I remember specifically on the abortion issue, Claire McCaskill, who is a Democrat and a staunch Democrat and no fan of Trump at all, former Missouri senator, said that Trump did a smart thing, especially in the area of abortion, because abortion and Trump in many states, and some swing states, were on the ballot as two separate issues.
Yeah.
States had abortion referendums
Florida
on their ballot.
was one of them.
Florida lost theirs. Arizona did win theirs. And so voters in Arizona were able to say, I don't agree with President Trump's position on abortion, but I can vote for that here, and I can also vote for Trump here in a separate place. And it allowed that to happen. I mean, after we get through the election and selection of the cabinet and things like that, we'll dive deep into issues. But that one is an area that I think the Democrats banked on as being enough. I think calling Trump Hitler and a fascist and abortion was the game plan, and it didn't work.
But how do you not see that's not going to work?
They started to towards the end. Now, they didn't get off the Hitler and fascist thing, but they didn't have any substance to roll onto. But that's what I mean. You saw, we talked about in the very first episode, Colin Allred backing off of those positions and acting like he was for strong borders and for physical barriers at the border, acting like he was not for. He kept saying, I don't want boys playing in women's sports, when he actively had supported that in the past. So I think you saw them saying, oh no, like this is not working, trying to flip. And then Harris, even ABC News, who's obviously no fan of Trump, ran a special showing that she had flipped on 17 different issues from when she began in her time as vice president to her 100 and however many days, 5 days as a candidate, that she had flipped on those issues. So I think they saw that, but she did not have any substance to go to. You can't point to me the video where she lays out her plan for anything.
And I think 2 points. I want to talk about social media, and then I want to talk about those points there.
Mm.
I think the advent of social media prevents the lying, right? You can't tell a lie anymore because there's video everywhere. And let's just go back 2000. Let's go 20 years, 2004. I mean, that's about the time that you started seeing some cell phone footage, but there is video everywhere, and you can't lie anymore. Like, you can't come out and say one thing, and I think that's what literally hurt Allred's campaign, right? Because he has some good concepts. Cruz was primed to be beat if you played your cards correctly, but again, a terrible campaign.
Allred should have been a better candidate than Beto was. He should have been a better candidate for a Democrat senator in Texas than Robert Francis O'Rourke was. But I gotta call him. I gotta call him that. I don't know where Beto comes from, but I just don't get it. But a note about what you're saying about social media, about you can't lie anymore. I agree, but Harris had a media machine letting her lie. Like, she did not have as many people coming up and checking her stuff. Now there was, and I feel like, though, I am probably seeing more of that because of the accounts of the people I follow.
Right.
I feel like for the average, even Texan or American, that is just following the three big networks news, and maybe that's all they're getting, they're not going to see the checking of Harris's flip-flops or even Colin Allred's flip-flops or anybody else. But you did see that shift because you got Bob Casey up in Pennsylvania, who towards the end of his campaign started highlighting the places he had agreed with Trump.
Right.
So he completely leaves Harris in the dust and says, I cannot be on those coattails or I'm going to lose. And he did lose. They've called it, well, Decision Desk hasn't, but the AP and everyone else has called the Pennsylvania Senate for McCormick.
Or just come out and say, you know what, guys, I really thought about this, and I think I'm going to change my position on this.
Yeah.
And then have a formal statement and just go with it, right?
Yeah.
Don't be, one of the things that you hear a lot is like, don't be married to your ideas. Don't be married to the concepts. Don't be married to these policies, because guess what? Policy and things change, right? I can promise you, my ideas of healthcare prior to 2020, because of our life experience, changed dramatically. And so it's something that, like, if I was stuck in my ways, I'm not ever going to be able to see the faults, one, but then also be able to think about, like, okay, is this a really good idea? And I think that Harris had a perfect opportunity to be like, you know what, even though I was supportive of President Biden in this area, or the immigration statuses of people, that probably wasn't a great idea. And here's how we're going to fix that, or here's how we're going to adjust that. You don't even have to say fix. You could say adjust. But instead, they just doubled down in multiple places where it's like, what are you doing? This policy is not working.
Right.
The American people don't want to go and fight wars anymore. Right. And so you don't see, like we saw in Vietnam, where you're coming out against the soldiers that were there. Yeah. Now you're like, hey, where are these billions of dollars going to that we're sending to Ukraine and to Israel and to Gaza?
Especially in hyperinflation, when people are trying to make ends meet, you're sending billions of dollars to another country where a lot of people believe, and probably rightly so, that money is going to corrupt people and for corrupt purposes. And then you have people struggling at home. I mean, it's a completely wrong message. And I like what you say about don't be married to your ideas, but more than that, don't be married to your party's ideas, especially when they don't work. Or, like you said, Harris could come out and said, hey, when I was in the room with Biden whenever we decided these things, but you know what? It didn't work out, and this is what we didn't foresee, and this is what we had wanted to do, but it didn't work. They're never going to do that.
But you have to.
Yeah, I wish they would. I wish all candidates would. You have to. Like, I really believe this. I believe this is the change you're about to see. You're about to see, I really believe, and we're not going to hop into this today, it's not on our list, but like the wars, the foreign wars. Okay, we'll be a player, but we are not going to be the only one. We're not going to be the only one fighting. I get stuck on the whole Ukraine-Russia thing, because it's like, man, there's a lot of corruption there. A lot of corruption. Yes. And it has been for decades. Yes.
This is not new.
It's not new with Ukraine at all.
And so it just goes back to the things of, like, we talking about people hurting at home. Like, how many natural disasters did we have in the last 12 months? Just Maui, where the massive fires out there, California wildfires, Texas wildfires, hurricanes left and right, what it seems to be. And you're like,
collapsing.
Yeah, the Baltimore bridge collapsing, which, by the way, did not get near the amount of publication that it should have. Or even not the oil spills, but the chemical explosions.
The train derailment in Ohio.
Yeah, and like those people need help.
Yeah.
Like, we still haven't fixed the Flint water problem.
Right.
And good Lord, could we please fix our roads here in Texas?
I know. Like, think of just think of the money that went. But again, I don't know. I think you'll see people start coming back to not being married to bad ideas. But speaking of the wars thing, Trump is not a wars guy.
No,
it's not. That is the Trump doctrine. I don't have any doubt that he will fight if we need to protect American interests, but he's not a wars guy. And I believe that's why the Cheneys left him, because the Cheneys are. Dick Cheney is a wars guy. So that's his background. That's his mode. That's what he likes. And I don't believe that these Republicans like Liz Cheney that left Trump and came out against Trump and then actually endorsed and supported and campaigned for Kamala Harris actually agree with Kamala Harris.
I don't either.
I think they knew, and I think a lot of the people in Trump's first cabinet, his first presidency, found out they weren't going to be able to make that money and, for lack of a better word, suck at the teat of the big federal hog And that's why they came out against him.
Yeah.
I think that there were government people entrenched, like we say, in the swamp, but they were government. They were bureaucrats. They were used to getting their fill off the government. And when they found out they weren't going to, they turned against him. And I think that's exactly what happened with the Cheneys. I don't think Liz Cheney, to her core, actually agrees with Kamala Harris. But I think she knew that her family was going to suffer if Trump won again. And that's why she did what she did. That's just my opinion.
So what was your immediate reaction? You text at like 3 a.m. Like, what was your immediate reaction when it was called 270? I know that there's I don't think it's been officially called as of yet. Maybe it has been. But what was your immediate reaction when you knew Trump was going to win?
I want to say somewhat relieved, but there was not a time when I was watching the returns come in that I was worried. The returns were coming in exactly and better than expected for Trump. And I have watched this for enough years and like researched it leading up to actual election day to know which counties and which precincts to watch to give indicators.
Right.
And so my only fear, I did have one, was early in the night how much Ted Cruz was trailing Trump in Texas with votes. Like there was a time he was trailing Trump by 4, 5, almost 6% at times, and Allred was ahead. And I was like, okay, this is something to watch, because it was even in some of the more conservative counties,
right,
where he was trailing. And so I was like, okay, this could be some split ticket. That was the only real worry I had. I did not ever worry about the Senate. I didn't, because Manchin's seat was definitely going to go to a Republican in West Virginia, and I really felt good about Sheehy in Montana, and he won that by a large margin. So I was good with the Senate. I did get a little worried about the House kind of Wednesday-ish, the next day, but the House looks good now. So yeah,
so so it's Sunday night.
Yeah,
November the 10th.
That's the 10th.
It has been officially called. So I wanted to. It's 312 to 226.
Yeah, which is when we were looking at it last week. What we call our base electoral had Trump at 219 and Harris at 226, and she didn't win a single swing state. She stayed at that 226. He got all of them.
Well, my initial reaction was first off, I was at a playoff game.
Yeah,
and we did win, so that mattered.
That mattered.
But I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Like I didn't really any presidential election, just because of my educational background. I understand that presidency is not as important as the Senate and the House.
Right.
So, however,
I think Trump will make it, though.
I do.
There's a side note to that. He has, especially like on the tariff side and things like that, and immigration, he is keyed up to where he himself can really operate and accomplish a lot of what is campaigned on without needing Congress. So that's a big chunk.
Well, and I think that plays into him winning the popular vote, because of the margin of victory in the popular vote, it proved that the American people wanted that.
Right, and what does that mean? Like they talk about, does he have a mandate? Yes,
absolutely.
312 and 5-6 million on the popular vote, wherever it lands up. He has a mandate. What does a mandate mean? A mandate means that the people who oppose you in Congress are scared for their jobs. Enough of them are that they will vote with you. So when Trump proposes reasonable legislation that has to go through a filibuster, he will have at least the 60 in the Senate to get it done.
Okay, so it's been brought to my attention that sometimes we use words that people don't know. Explain a filibuster.
Filibuster means you can just talk and talk and talk and talk. So you have to get to vote on something in the Senate. They have to be able to call for cloture, which is a funny word for basically saying, hey, we're done talking and debating. We're going to actually vote on this. To get to cloture on most all legislation, you need 60 votes of the Senate, not just a regular 51 majority. So the Republicans are going to have 53 senators. The Democrats are going to have 47. On filibuster type of legislation, which is a lot of it, they're going to need at least seven Democrats to side with them to be able to get anything done. The House doesn't have that. The House is a straight majority, so as long as you get all the Republicans to vote with you, you can pass what you need to through the House, which is important because the House is where they get the budget, and the House is where tax policy has to begin. Now, the Senate will have to still vote on any tax law changes, but tax policy has to begin in the House.
And so I think that majority, because it's not a super majority.
Right.
So the majority in the Senate at least goes back to that ability to hold court in lawmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is so important. And I believe that if he hadn't gotten the Senate, it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, and I just speaking abstractly and big picture, I hope, and I don't know if they'll do this, but I would love for things to get back to an older form of governing. And by older form of governing, I mean like Obama and George W. Bush, like not that long ago when, okay, you don't have control. Like your party is not in the White House in case of the Obama administrations, but they can propose legislation. You're not going to completely agree with it. You're not going to agree with all of it, but they can say, okay, that's where the amendment process comes in and say,
Correct.
Well, like we can't just shove through a straight Democrat bill.
Correct. Which is what they've been doing for folks not paying attention for the last 4 years.
Exactly. We can't do that. We're going to have to put in something for the opposition party who's not in power to agree with us enough to pass the bill. Otherwise, Congress doesn't get anything done.
Correct. Which is also what has been happening for the last 8 years.
Right. So that's what I am looking forward to getting back to, is saying, hey, understand your guy didn't win in the White House. The Republicans also have the House and the Senate majorities. Now let's push through reasonable legislation that's going to have some Democrat assurances, some Democrat amendments. They're going to ask for some things to get their votes, and that's okay, because I might not agree with that, but they represent almost half the country.
But it goes back to that middle ground that we've talked about multiple times, right? I can at least understand why you want this, right?
Right.
But at the same time, like they have got to come together.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been already. Did you see Trump came out yesterday or today trying to help Harris's campaign pay back the debt that they're in?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a ploy. Probably is. I mean, just to stick it one more time to the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
But maybe that's an olive branch.
She raised
maybe
$1 billion and has debt.
$1 billion
And has debt.
Hey, so we're trying to start our podcast, right? Could you imagine if they offered us $100,000, which is what they built that studio for, the Call Me Daddy studio?
Just for that.
Just $100,000.
Yeah, our studio didn't cost $100,000.
No, it did not. And it's like, what in the world were you thinking? So while we're talking about podcasts, did you see Barron is the one who told Trump that he needed to go on to several of those things?
Barron is the demographic.
He's
the beginning of the demographic.
He's the beginning of the demographic,
Yeah.
but he's also like, he's plugged into that group of people. He's in college, right?
Like you've seen the old pictures and videos of Trump back when he was just the New York billionaire. Mm-hmm. Barron looks exactly
like him.
Exactly.
It's creepy.
Plus, he's like 27 feet tall.
He's 6'9".
Okay, he looks taller than that because
That's
Trump's a tall dude, and so is Melania.
But 6'9" is tall.
Yeah, he's tall.
And to be only 18 years old, I
work with a guy that's 7 feet tall, and he told me, I'm going to mess this number up. Somebody could Google it. But because he's 7 feet tall, there's only like 3,500 people in the entire world that are taller than him. Like that's how small the numbers get when you get to that height. And I guess Barron's 3 inches away from that. So I wonder how many people are. He's a tall dude, but he looks just like Trump. But I like that he's plugged in. I like that he's plugged in. Like you get.
But that also tells you, I don't think Trump listens to him 8 years ago.
No.
And I don't think Trump listens to anyone like him.
No.
20 years ago.
No. I don't know, to be honest, how much Trump listens to anyone.
I think he listens to that secretary lady. What's the lady? She just, I'm going to butcher her name. She's going to be the new White House secretary, press secretary, but the White House coordinator. That's what I call her.
His chief of staff?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know who she reminds me of?
Who?
Ruth Cherry.
Yeah.
When I saw her, I was like, oh, that's Miss Cherry.
Well, they say she doesn't like the limelight. And so she's
Which
always,
is perfect.
That's why no one knows her name.
Which is perfect.
But you know who she is? She's Pat Summerall's daughter.
Monday Night Football?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't make that connection.
Yeah, I didn't either till I Googled her because nobody knows who she is. Like, he brought her up. I've heard her name, like, mentioned and throughout the campaign a few times, and then he brought her up at the victory speech at 2:30 in the morning, and that was kind of the first real time, like, she'd been seen. So, of course, I looked in her.
But she also looks like everybody's mama.
She does.
You know what I mean? Like, she looks like the lady, the matriarch of the family that everyone listens to. I talk about this in class all the time when I'm teaching matriarch and patriarch.
Yeah.
It's like everybody listens to their mama. Everybody listens to their mimo.
Yeah.
Like, she's probably got some crazy wild ideas, but you know what? She's also lived a little bit too.
She does have just in the little bit that we've seen her, I'm excited because it does look like she is a no BS and like she just handles it. And you would kind of have to be Trump's campaign manager. I mean, I don't know who his campaign manager was in 2020. I should look that up. But Kellyanne Conway was his campaign manager in 2016 that got him elected. So he's had at least two, maybe three, at least two female campaign managers. And the 2 times he's been elected, they've been female campaign managers.
And she's going to be the first chief of staff, which seems odd. You put that in the notes, and I was like, what? I had to actually look it up.
First ever. Like, there's never been a female chief of staff.
Which seems wild to me.
It does seem wild. I mean, I'm not trying to say that women have served in equal time in leadership positions in our country, especially in government. Like, if you look at this at the Senate, you're going to see a lot of white dudes, a lot more men overall. Like, that's common, but it does seem odd that through all this time that we're in 2024 and it's the first time we're going to have a female chief of staff.
I'm also really interested to see who he's going to pick to be the press secretary.
He should pick Vivek. I feel like he could be better used somewhere else.
I agree.
But press secretary is a big deal.
That would be fun.
That guy can articulate a position very well.
Maybe Ben Shapiro.
He talks too fast. When you listen to his podcast,
I have to slow it down.
I'd have to slow it down.
I have to listen to it in 0.5.
Yeah, he speaks in like 1.5 naturally. Do you want to talk cabinet a little bit?
Let's talk about why she lost first.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
It's because we're still going in order. I think it was a political coup. I saw you put on there, what conspiracy theories are you buying into lately? Like,
mine's really odd, so I'll let you go first.
So, like, I think this is a political coup. I think that, especially the last month, the Democratic Party saw there's no way she's going to win. So now we're in damage control. Now, I also think that the political coup starts when they remove Biden.
Right. I don't think he stepped away.
I don't think 100%.
And I don't think anybody does. Like, I was listening to a podcast yesterday with Pelosi, because I do listen to the opposition or people I don't agree with. I listen to them. And Pelosi was adamant that it was completely his decision and they come in and supported him for making a patriotic decision. I don't believe that for 1 second.
Not a second.
And I don't think anybody else does either. And I think, and there's even some people saying this now, that the reason he immediately, after he stepped down like the next day or two, endorsed Kamala was just a kind of big, fine, you guys don't want me, here's what you can have. And then they had to go with her once he did that. He made that decision. I think the Obamas and Pelosi and Schumer could have been vetting other people, and they could have potentially run someone else into the convention in just an open convention. But I think once he did that, the die was cast. They had to go with Kamala, and I think he's the one as kind of a last hurrah who did that of his own accord.
Well, and then his speeches there at the end of the election, where he was where he put the MAGA hat on, where someone asked him a question. You can't really hear what they're asking him, but it's obviously like a pointed question about Harris, and he turns around and gives them the whole, like, yeah, I did. I did. And I think that Jill Biden probably plays a little bit into it too. We haven't heard her name, which we know she loves the power. We know she loves the spotlight. Yeah. And her name has been completely out of the news cycle over this whole process. And I just think that political coup of removing this person from candidacy, then putting a person in who, even though she was African American, Indian, whatever ethnicity she was at that moment, plays into that, because she was not the best choice.
No.
She's not, and there are multiple other candidates that they could have run out there.
I don't know. I
that
feel
would
like they
have
don't have
helped.
any bench strength. You talk about Shapiro in Pennsylvania, the governor. Okay. Who else? I feel like they don't have the bench strength because I don't think Gavin Newsom in California is anything. I don't think honestly, and I don't even think Josh Shapiro out of Pennsylvania would have won. Looking at how the votes came down, I think he would have made a stronger presence. I still don't think he would have won. I don't know that he would have carried Pennsylvania.
I still think the mistake was, and this goes back to the 2020 election.
Yeah.
With Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
When she destroyed Harris,
Mm-hmm.
this goes into the next point of, could this have been pulled off in the past? No, it could not. They could not have done this in the past.
No.
Because a person like Tulsi Gabbard doesn't leave the Democratic Party.
Right.
Right. And so she stays in.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's the next one up because heck, she's a better candidate.
She is.
And now, who else is left?
That's what I mean. I feel like they don't have a bench because Amy Klobuchar, I don't think so. Now, I think Amy Klobuchar could challenge Tim Walz in Minnesota and become the governor and go out as the governor. I could see her doing that. I don't think Gavin Newsom's going to do anything. He might run in a primary, but who really do they have? I mean, I don't want to get too deep in this because we could talk about this in 3 years, but they don't have a bench right now. They need, and I don't want to make them do this, but they need someone in these next couple of years to step up because they don't have anybody on the bench.
But I also think that having two strong candidates is good for the country, right?
I'll take that back. I don't think Michelle wants anything to do with it.
I don't think she does either.
But I think she is a mention if we're talking about potentials.
So that brings us to the last question of why she lost. Does her gender matter?
I think there is a sliver of America that it does. But I honestly, and people will disagree with me on this. I do think it's a small section.
I think 20 years ago it mattered.
Yes, absolutely. But I don't think Hillary or Kamala lost completely.
That was my point.
Because of their gender. I don't think people like them.
You're not, and you have to be likable.
Yes.
In certain aspects of your life, right? Which is the reason why Biden won, which is the reason why Trump was not likable, but at least we could see the business side of it. So you're like, okay, I like the business side of it.
Right.
You have to be likable.
Yeah.
And Harris was not likable. I think it's such a minuscule amount of people that it matters about her gender, that it's not even a blip on the radar.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of the talk shows this week. We're talking about, oh, people didn't vote for her because she's a woman. No, it doesn't have anything to do with that.
I wish, no.
And if it does, it's such a small amount of people.
I didn't. Talking about watching other more liberal-leaning news media, I wish I could walk onto the set of MSNBC or CNN and say, listen, you guys followed this train all leading up to the election and it didn't work. And now you're still doing it. That is all they have talked about this week is, well, America just has a misogynist problem, and that's why Harris lost. No, it's not. And the sooner they could admit that and start actually reporting news, the sooner we would actually get somewhere. They're not going to. It sounds like, and this is just the dumbest thing in the world, it sounds like they are going to just continue on the Trump hate train that they've been on for a couple of years, 4 years, 6, 8 years now, even throughout these next 4 years, and it didn't work.
And
just because they say that he's a fascist and he's going to do all these things, like Oprah Winfrey standing up 2 days before the election saying, if Trump wins, we may never vote again. What are you talking about? Who has ever said that?
No one.
Right.
No one.
It's fear-mongering, which they've always done really well. Like Nancy Pelosi saying that Trump was going to get rid of Social Security. He never said that, and he in fact said that he wasn't going to touch it. He has a position officially out there that he's not going to touch Social Security, and you literally have the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, saying he's going to get rid of your Social Security if you vote for him. The fear-mongering was just on steroids.
But that goes back to social media, and it goes back to having a video everywhere you turn. You can search, what did Trump say about this? Now, you might have to go a little bit deeper because it's not going to pull up the first couple of times you Google it or whatever platform you use.
Yeah.
But it goes back to that because I don't believe that you could do that 20 years ago.
But I also don't think the average American is going to do that.
No.
And I think he won because of the economy. Just boil it all down. The average American's not going to take the time to dig and say, oh, they are lying about him. You know, he did not say that, or he has a complete opposite position to that, or he said that he hasn't even looked at Project 2025 and doesn't agree with it. Like, they're not going to actually look into that, and the media is not going to fact check them on that. So I think at the end of the day, it wasn't that they knew that the Democrats were lying and flip-flopping. I think it's just the economy. And whenever you have an economy that bad, people want change, and they almost always, I went back several election cycles and looked at this, and almost in every single one flipped the party. Bush got away with a little bit.
Yeah.
And he got a second term, but he also was the 9/11 president, and we've sort of forgotten about that these days, but that held a lot of sway whenever you were voting again in 2004.
Yeah,
just
and
3 years after it happened.
I don't like, regardless of how you feel about the war in Iraq, we may get into this at some point in our podcast, but like, he had no choice. Whether he was going to war for his dad, I don't know. I can't say for sure.
Yeah.
But we tend to forget the fact that someone flew 2 airplanes into a building.
Yeah.
And that's why. And then he stood up and did what he felt was best. I 100% believe that the Patriot Act should not have been passed. But that was the only thing.
Overreach.
It was 100% overreach.
Yeah.
Now, but we're also sitting 23 years removed from that.
Yeah.
You know? And did we know what cell phones were going to be like that? No. Did we know that there were going to be cameras on computers and all the massive amounts of data that were going to be collected? Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. But that's where it goes back to what I said at the beginning. You have to not be married to your ideas, and we have to make a shift in that type of policy. But that does irritate me because it's like we do forget. So,
and tend to look at history with rose-colored glasses.
And we think like, oh, well, let's try to do it better, right? Or we could have done this better. Well, no, that's what the country wanted at that moment. And if I remember correctly, I believe the Patriot Act almost passed with 100%. I think there was one senator that voted against it.
Yeah, there was like 3. I think it was 97. And I think there was somebody abstained, so like 97 too.
So did you like when she conceded? Did you like the timing of it?
Yes and no. I would say I didn't like the timing of it. I understand it. And I don't have a problem with it. Like, I understand you don't want to come out at 3 o'clock in the morning. Hillary didn't either. You don't want to come out at 3 o'clock in the morning, especially when stuff like it has been called, but there is still counting going on. Like you have, I'm sure she had people in her ear saying, well, now wait a second. Like, we've got this in Pennsylvania or Georgia or wherever that we can kind of look into. And so she said, hang on, let's just take a day. You know, I think if I'm going to say I don't like something, I don't like how long she waited the second day.
See, I don't really have a problem with it. Yeah. I'm just glad.
Kind of on the fence too, I guess. I'm
just glad that she conceded.
Right.
And I said that in the last episode. Whoever wins, I wanted Trump to win. But whoever wins, just concede.
It's almost if we live in an alternate universe and say that Trump did not win this past Tuesday, it's almost like you wanted Harris to come out and win by the 312 instead of Trump. Like, you want it to be decisive, just to be done, and to be decisive. And like we talked about that on our last podcast, our last episode, is we thought we had an idea of what was going to happen Tuesday and got more and more confident as we went on with that. But at the same time, like, we asked for a winner on Tuesday night or the wee hours of Wednesday morning, and that's what we got. I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. And I'm thankful that it's Trump. I don't know. I think he's more prepared now than he was 8 years ago.
With his people, for sure.
100%. 100%. And I think the winning the Senate, and it looks like they're going to take the House. I think there's still a few seats up.
It is 216 to 209 right now. There's 10 seats up. And out of the 10 seats up, 6 of 10 are in Republican districts, and they only need 2 more.
Yeah, so I think that helps too. Yeah. Like, I think that helps the decision-making within the Harris campaign. But now, like, what does she do now?
She's done.
Her political career is over.
Yeah, now she will make money speaking. There are plenty of liberal and left-leaning places and completely left places that will pay her lots of money to come speak.
Yeah.
She won't have the Obama speaking tour like he did.
No.
He made zillions of dollars, but she'll write a book or two. She'll get involved, and she'll get to be a chancellor at some university while she writes books and does speaking engagements. And it's not that she could not. I'm not saying that no, she can never be a politician. It's just once you run for president and lose, you either run again, which she's not going to, or you go to private life. So that's it.
I think she goes to the private life. I don't think
100%. I don't think there's. I think there's zero chance she ever has a political position again.
Okay. So now, let's talk about, before we get into the cabinet members, I want to talk about the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
So there's potentially 3 positions open. The Democrats.
They're all young, though.
They are young.
Oh, are you talking about the liberal-leaning justices, or the ones that could, like Alito and Clarence Thomas, who could retire?
Roberts.
He's
not that old, though. When I read that, like,
that's why. So if you remember when this happened, Rehnquist died.
Yeah.
But Bush had already nominated
Yeah.
Roberts to an associate justice, but
Yeah.
then Rehnquist dies, and he's like, "Oh, here we go! Like, I want him to be the chief justice."
Yeah.
And so they changed that. But no, I think the only 2 on the block are Clarence Thomas and Alito. But I saw an interview with Clarence Thomas 5 years ago. So again, it's 2019, where he's like, "I'm not retiring. I will die in this position." Like he has been adamant more than once, saying he will not retire. He's going to die there. And he's approaching 80. He's like 79.
So what about Sotomayor?
So I don't understand. I mean, I do understand it, but it seems like such a wild shot that Democrats are calling for her to resign. She's only 70.
I was about to look that up. How old is she?
She's only 70, and she looks and appears in great health.
Yeah.
However, she was speaking at Berkeley this summer, talking about how hard it weighs on her to lose these court cases, that she really, when she writes the dissent, I've heard her on, she's also been on Conan O'Brien's podcast. It's a really good one to go listen to.
I listen to it. I don't listen to it all the time, but it's in my...
Just to get like behind the curtain a little bit.
Yeah.
She has a great working relationship with the other justices, and I believe they all do. But she talked about it at this speech at Berkeley about how losing these cases really weighs on her, makes her sick at her stomach, puts her in knots, makes her physically ill. So I can see her saying, you know what, maybe I will step away. But my goodness, that is really...
It's young for a Supreme Court justice.
It is young, and they're saying like she would have to, like, you have less than 70, it's like 65 days left.
And then you would have to call Congress back.
Yeah. They would. And I don't know. Like,
I don't think they have enough time.
It's risky.
And it's because then all you'd have to do is filibuster the whole process until you get it done.
Here's my point is she's 70, appears to be in great health. I don't think she's going to retire in these next 4 years.
I don't either.
Democrats, you're going to get another election in 2028. Are you saying that, we're just never going to win again? Like, come on.
And I think, too, like, the pressing of the Supreme Court members to retire is bad policy.
Yeah.
Like, you leave those guys alone.
Yeah.
Like, I know one of the things that Trump is going to push for is a constitutional amendment for Congress members, which I totally 100% agree with.
100%.
And we can dive into that either later on in this one or on the next couple. But I think that any talk about Supreme Court justices being removed from office or asking them to retire, putting public pressure on them to retire is very bad policy.
I think you could do it privately, carefully, if they are getting way up there in years.
Isn't that what Ginsburg did? That's what they did. That's kind of what they did to her.
Yeah. And they were mad at her about that. It's like, I don't know. I don't think, if I had to pick today, like we say this a lot as we've been predicting the election and Senate and things like that. If you made me pick today, I would say Sotomayor does not retire early. I think she stays on the bench, and I would say she's probably still on the bench whenever the 2028 election comes around.
I agree. And I don't think
Alito's going to leave either.
I don't either.
And I don't think Clarence Thomas is going to leave
I don't either.
And I don't think either one of them are going to die in the next 4 years. I don't know. But just
Don't
looking
go on
at
a hunting trip, though.
Gosh. I drove past that ranch one time. I was in deep South Texas around Big Bend.
Really?
And I drove past that ranch, and I'm like, and I forget even the name of it right now. I can't think of it. But it's had big gates, and it had, like, this is what kind of brought my attention to it, because I was driving early in the morning down close to Presidio, Texas. And I looked over, and there's this ranch entrance, and it has those, like, older model Toyota Tacomas with guys standing in the back of them holding machine guns at the gate.
Wow.
Like, they're protecting this ranch. And I'm like, that is some protection out here, but it's very close to the border.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay, now that makes sense. But I couldn't remember why the name of that ranch was sticking in my brain until I was like, oh, yeah, that's where Scalia died. Supposedly of natural causes. Supreme Court justice randomly dies on a hunting trip in deep South Texas. Anyway.
But I think it's bad policy. I 100. It's bad policy, and that's something that I hope Trump stays away from.
Yeah.
I don't think he should pack the court. That never ends well.
I don't think he wants to. I think, like, guys like, I got 3 in one term. Alito might leave. He's getting on up there, and he might say Trump has appointed 3 strict constitutionalists in his time, and that's what Alito would want. And so I feel like Alito, if he had something else he wanted to go do, or if he wanted to get off the court and go retire and just be with family, I don't think Thomas will, because he just flat out said he's not going to.
And I don't think John Roberts is going to retire either.
No, he'll hang
around. He's still the Chief Justice, right?
He is, yeah. He is.
And that's arguably one of the most powerful members in the government.
Yes.
I mean, you have the president and then maybe the Chief Justice as far as it goes to lawmaking and constitutional amendments and then reading the Constitution. I think that's arguably one of the most powerful positions in government.
He holds a lot of sway, but I feel like I don't know about the addition of Ketanji Brown Jackson, how that has changed the makeup of the court, but in reading memoirs and articles and biographies and things like that about people when they talk about the court, it seems like this current court's makeup is they get along well, they work well together.
Yeah.
Which you do want. I mean, it's the highest court in the land. If Congress isn't working and if Congress is going to be deadlocked, you want the court to be able to work well together and come to decisions together and debate and have a good discourse.
And I think that's where Roe v. Wade comes in. I really don't think, I think that they probably view that as government overreach in the first place, as constitutionalists. And so putting it back into the mind of a federalism idea where the states have power to do that.
Right.
And we're seeing it play out. I don't think that, I think that maybe Trump saw that happening, but I would love to see that become more of a common thread where we're taking this stuff away from the national government and putting it back in the powers of the state. And guess what? If you don't like what the state is doing, then leave.
Right.
Like it's not that, like, it is hard to move. I'm not going to understate that, right? I don't want to leave Texas, right? But if something's wild starts happening, I'm out of here.
I don't like things being decided by the court because I didn't vote for them.
Agreed.
So if something comes back to the states, I am a strict federalist. I follow that model. That is my politics. And I like that because I like people I vote for making those decisions because they could be held accountable to me and to all the other voters. And we come together collectively as a state or as a country, and we decide the laws that are going to govern us. So I don't like the court deciding things where the people, in such a way don't really have a say in things.
And I also think that we forget that federalism is a principle of the Constitution. Like, go back 8th grade social studies, right? And that is one of the main things that you teach.
Yeah.
And I know that people forget that. Like, the separation of powers is a real thing.
Right.
Federalism is a real thing, right? And that has to be that we have to get back to that. Have to.
Yeah. You're a history teacher. I'm speaking in your wheelhouse and not mine right now. But go read Washington, go read Madison, go read Jefferson, go read Hamilton.
They all said the same thing when it came to that.
And people, I think, and maybe just don't know, but people, I assume, believe that after the Revolutionary War was won, everybody's like, oh, let's all just become a country. And that was not the case. There were a lot of states and territories and properties that were like saying, "Hey, no, we're good.
It's called the Federalist Papers.
Yeah, we're good. We can just stay as Virginia. We don't have to be the United States.
To be the United States. Yeah,
they were all happy, and like it took basically one of the key things. And tell me if I'm getting this wrong, if there are other reasons, paying off the war debt. To bring everybody together into a country, the 13 colonies, but they were happy staying as colonies.
Yeah,
a lot
and
of them.
I think that we forget that, right? We're a young country,
yeah,
and like I just got finished teaching Rome, right, in my class, and so Rome was around like almost 2,000 years, right, and then it fully collapsed and went away, and it only really went away because of corruption,
right?
Because of wars, and because they just couldn't get along anymore.
Yeah.
And like when we look at that, I hear a lot of things of like, oh, the empire is going to fall. Well, first off, we are not an empire. I'm going to get on my soapbox here, but we are not an empire. But the other thing is too, is we have the freedom in states to kind of sort of do what we want.
Yep.
And I think that we forget that. We forget that Texas is Texas. And there's a reason why during COVID, people moved from California to here.
Yeah. You made your argument about if you don't like the policies there, just move. And I agree. It is not easy to move, especially not easy to move states, to move away from where you have family and friends and support, especially if you're raising kids. But millions of people have moved out of California and out of the Northeast because they don't agree with those policies.
So we have students that move into the district that I work for, into our district or into the local district that they live in because during COVID they were pushing ideology that they did not agree with. And I don't know about you. I mean, I'll speak for myself, but if I'm sitting there and my kid is having to be online and learn because of COVID, this is happening during 2020, 2021, and 2022. And then I hear something on the computer coming from the school district that I do not agree with.
Yeah.
And then I approach the school district and I'm like, hey, this is not something that I agree with. And there is zero response, which I can tell you there were, in my personal experience, over 20 that I spoke to. And they're like, yeah, we didn't agree with the things that they were telling our kids to do. Then we had to make a change.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah,
I totally understand it.
Yeah, it's not easy to move, but here's the thing. You at least have a voice. If the court is deciding everything and the court is creating law instead of interpreting law, then you don't have a voice there. But even if Texas were to pass a law I did not agree with, and you know what, there's a big one that Governor Abbott's probably going to try to pass that I do not agree with, and we'll talk about that another time. It's called school vouchers.
Okay.
We're not getting into that.
We're running out of time.
We're a good solid 55 minutes into this thing, so ish. But
there will be plenty of time to talk about that during January.
I can voice my opinion, and I can vote a certain way, and I can speak into that, and then I can decide if I really care that much about it, which I don't, to move. Then I can take my family somewhere else, and like that, you have a voice, you can be heard. But here's the point: if you want the Supreme Court to be writing law, all you've done is take away your voice as a voter, because you don't vote for them.
We've become an oligarchy.
Yeah, exactly.
Which a lot of people already think we are. Which, to be perfectly clear, I don't agree with.
No. But it's another big word.
And I think that with this election being over now, it's over. And I think there's a couple of things that caused him to win. I think the assassination attempts, I saw you put on there, it happens every 20 years.
Yeah, I was wanted to talk about that. It's my conspiracy theory I'm believing these days.
And I've pushed this the last two, but the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania is when I was like, okay, I have to vote for him. I have to. They're trying to kill him, but why are they trying to kill him?
Yeah.
And then the next one, and then the next one. And then now it turns out there was like 5 or 6 total that they stopped. And it's like, why are they trying to kill this man?
I think a lot of people who might have been on the fence made the decision after that. And then the subsequent one down in Florida on the golf course. Like, I think a lot of people, that is what turned them in that direction with the same type of thinking.
So what is the conspiracy theory?
Well, it's half a conspiracy theory. It's half truth. So every president who's elected in a year that is a multiple of 20 has either died in office or had an assassination or an assassination attempt. So McKinley.
Hold on, so multiples of 20.
Yes, so like 1860, Lincoln.
Okay.
Yeah, McKinley in 1900.
Okay.
Then,
Okay.
Or 1920. 1940, FDR died in office.
Okay.
1960 was Kennedy. 1980, Reagan is shot. 2000, Biden won. But did he? So that's my conspiracy theory part of it. So like, since Trump had the assassination attempt, does that mean that Trump actually was the real winner in 2020? Because it would have to hold true. Otherwise, it breaks.
Okay. I
forgot about W in 2000. He had the overseas assassination attempt. So
yeah, and then they tried to throw shoes at him.
Well, yeah.
I'm glad it's over. I'm so glad that I don't have to listen to the political ads until 4 more years or 2 more years.
No, they're not going to stop those.
I'm so thankful.
They don't have any money to. Otherwise, they
yeah, they're still running them. But I'm so glad it's over. I love politics. I love government. I love history. Mm-hmm. But if I despise anything about any of those things, it's political ads.
Yeah.
And it just because it has such a draining effect on everyone around them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm glad it's over.
Right. I am too. And I'm happy with the result.
Same. So we always end on a sports topic.
Do we have to?
Yeah, we have to.
I was at the game today.
And why in the world do we not have curtains yet?
Well, we do have curtains. He refuses to use them in the game. I didn't know that until today. I was talking to somebody. So I did not.
Yeah, they were up when we took my son to Monster Jam.
When they do Monster Jam, when they do WrestleMania, and when they do concerts, they pull the curtains.
But why?
Because Jerry Jones is prideful. And he said a long time ago, we don't need to. He compares it to the old crown at Texas Stadium. Did you ever walk on the field at Texas Stadium in Irving?
No.
The crown was so high that when you're standing on the sideline...
You're talking about the ceiling?
No, the crown of the field.
Oh, okay.
It was so high that if you're standing on the sideline, you couldn't see the people on the other side.
Really?
And Jerry Jones would say, well, that makes us better because we are used to it because we play on it more. And that's what he says about the sun. I literally today, I was at the game. I did not pay for this. I have a very generous client who takes me to a game usually once a year and has a couple suites. Today's suite was the ones, if you've seen AT&T Stadium, they're down on the field.
Okay.
So if you look behind the players at the sidelines, you'll see people from like the chest up because they're like sunken. That's the suites we were in today. They have other suites that are up in the 200 level. But so I saw referees holding their hand over their face, trying because the sun was so blinding. And I saw a holding call get missed because like the back judge
can't see it.
Well,
CeeDee Lamb missed that touchdown because he couldn't see.
And he said that. And it's so clear. It is blinding. You see the players not be able to see. It's dumb and it's pride. And that's all it is. He can't be told he's wrong. And so, honestly, if you want Jerry Jones to start pulling the curtains of the game, stop talking about the curtains. Because if you tell him to, he's not going to do it. And that's just kind of the guy he is. He's the common denominator. He's the problem. He needs to go, in my opinion, go hang out on his yacht and just own a team.
Because wish you would, but you and I both know that's not going to happen.
Nothing's going to change.
So coming up, what are we going to talk about?
I think Trump will start filling out his cabinet.
Yeah, I think that's probably the next episode.
That's going to be the next probably few. It's going to take some time. He's got to pick people who will be confirmed, but having the Senate's going to help with that. Having the mandate is going to help with that. I think he's going to pick really. I'm excited about the cabinet. I like paying attention to it, and I'm excited to see who he's going to pick and who his advisors are going to be because I think they do matter.
And I think the first one that he made today or yesterday, he came out and said Mike Pompeo will not be a part of it. I think that's huge.
Yeah,
because that's totally
also Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley makes a little more sense to me, but I think Mike Pompeo.
But I also think that by not picking Mike Pompeo, it shows going away from the Warhawks.
Yes. And a new day. Like, can we sit around? Am I glad that Trump won in 2016? Absolutely. Can we pick apart his choice of leadership and his choice of advisors? Absolutely. And he said that himself. That's the number one thing that he did wrong as soon as he got in the door. So he acknowledges it, and I think it's good that he acknowledges it, and that he's going to correct it, unlike Jerry Jones, who can't acknowledge any mistakes.
I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying doing this. It's fun.
Yep.
I really like it. So I look forward to, I guess we can make it to where we're going to just do it every Sunday.
We have a new sign.
We do. I like it.
I like the sign. And Politico, because we talked about words.
Okay. Yep.
A Politico is a type of politics where the representative chooses the position that his constituents would choose.
Yep.
So a hard definition of Politico would be imagining a congressman or a senator. Every single time a bill comes up, they poll their constituency and say, what do you think about this bill? And however that goes is how they vote. They never really vote in their own right, but they always vote to support their constituency.
And I think that you and I, part of the reason we picked this topic or the name of the podcast is because we both believe that that should be how it is.
Exactly. Yeah, they are representatives. And that's why, to tease a future topic, I do agree with term limits. I think you should go make laws, and then you should go have to live under the laws you make.
Agreed.
So, but we'll talk about that and all kinds of other things coming up.
Have a good week.
You too, man.